Well, hello and welcome everyone to another Right Capital Practice Management webinar. My name is Daniel Gregoire. I'm thrilled to be here with our guest speaker today, who I'll introduce in just a moment. But I just want to remind all of you that this is of course, webinar content for our users of Right Capital. We genuinely appreciate you being with us here. And this is designed to be a really great content webinar with Kristin Harad here, focused on accelerating growth with less effort. And we'll let her get into all the details. But just a reminder, there's a go-to webinar control panel that you will all be looking at, through which you can ask us questions that will be answered at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions for Kristin, we'll be taking those and I'll be reading those off at the end. So don't be shy. We love to hear from you. But ultimately, we're here to help. We're here to provide any context we can on the information. So without further ado, I'll transfer this over to Kristin Harad, who is a CFP, former RIA founder, and is a fractional outsourced CMO, and is a marketing coach who helps RIAs and financial advisors fix their marketing funnels to achieve greater growth with less effort. Kristin, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks, Daniel, for having me. It's great to be back with the Right Capital audience. I know I've had the opportunity in the past to share my knowledge and best practices, so it's fun to be back. So thanks so much for the opportunity. And like Daniel said, today I'm here to talk about accelerating growth. And I know that's something that the majority of RIA owners and advisors out there are looking for. And we'd like to do it with less effort. So we're going to really hone in and focus on how to do that today. Okay. So typically, an advisor will reach out to me and be really focused. So they say, we want to grow. What do we need to do? Do we need to do social media? Should I be doing a podcast? Do I need to buy ads? Do I need PR? What do I need? And so all of that is essentially a top of the funnel activity. And that's one primary part of a marketing plan. In fact, a huge part of the marketing plan, because its whole goal is to increase awareness of your firm and generate some interest. So when you think marketing, a lot of advisors will equate the two of doing this type of attracting new people to awareness of your firm. And if you are new, and this is one of your early years of getting going, this is a huge area where you need to focus without a doubt. But if you're established and you've been in business a while, it may not be the highest, best use of your resources in terms of accelerating growth as quickly as you can. As Jim Rohn was known for saying, the fortune is in the follow-up. But if the fortune's in the follow-up, why is it that so few RIAs and financial advisors have a defined and intentional follow-up system? Well, to understand the concept and where this fits, let's take a look at a basic marketing funnel. Now, in a funnel, and again, there's lots of shapes and sizes of funnels that could be a whole presentation in itself, but the basic concept is you let people know at the top of the funnel here, you let them know you exist. So you're out there, you're posting on social media, you're sharing your content, you're doing all kinds of things to create awareness for your firm and generate interest. The funnel starts as soon as someone introduces themselves. So as soon as you have a name and a mode of contact, they become a lead. And that can be done lots of different ways. It could be that you are standing next to someone in line at Starbucks and chatting with them, and they said, hey, send me an email. I'm happy to talk to you. It sounds really interesting. And they'd come back and you'd manually input them. It could be that they saw a blog article you wrote online, and at the end of the article you said, download our free guide on how to do X, Y, and Z, and they provided a name and email address. They might have called into the firm. They might have filled out a contact form. They might have been a referral from a client. There could have been many different ways that that lead has entered into your brand sphere. But you have a name and a mode of contact, they become a lead. Then your job is to move that lead down the funnel to become a prospect, so that they're taking that first action in your sales process, as it were, where they opted into a consultation. And then ultimately you work through and they become a client. So while a lot of advisors are focusing their marketing on, I need more awareness, I need more people knowing about us. In fact, another amazing opportunity, and perhaps one that requires a whole lot less effort, is to focus on this lead to client conversion part of the funnel. And this is particularly useful for established advisors who have begun or have a hearty list of leads and prospects, or who have the desire to really carry through from the start to finish. So this is a hugely overlooked opportunity, but as Jim Rohn mentioned, the fortune is in the follow-up. So today we're really going to look at this lead to client conversion process. We're going to look at the funnel, and I'm going to show you how to build a follow-up marketing system in 4 steps. So the result we're looking for here is to increase conversion so you can increase your revenue, and do that with fewer resources and less incremental effort. Once someone enters in, it takes a whole lot less effort to move them through than it does to actually get them to volunteer their information in the first place. Now, as I'm talking through this and talking about meetings and consultations, you may be saying, well, isn't that sales, not marketing? Well, ultimately, sales and marketing go hand in hand, and I see this more and more speaking with advisors when we get into this middle of the funnel work. When you do really strong marketing, strategic marketing on the front end, it makes your sales process a whole lot easier. So your marketing is going to create awareness, let people know you exist. It's going to generate some interest as they start to see you 5, 6, 7 times in the world. And then your sales is really focused on conveying your value proposition to that individual. So how are you helping that individual with their specific pain point, and to get a commitment from them? So today's focus is really about that overlap. So when marketing kind of hands off to sales, and you'll see they're really not separate. They are integrated. So we're going to build this lead to client conversion process as the overlap of marketing and sales. So let's not get caught up on which is which. Now, before we get into the specifics, I want to make sure we're all on the same page about conversion. I know some people don't like to think of it that way because they're like, no, these are people, it's a relationship. I don't think about it as converting and numbers, but this is a marketing term. It's a term I'll be using today. You can call it what you want, but it's ultimately the number of clients who sign on over the number of consultations you have, and that's your conversion rate. So one of the things I hear a lot is, well, we have high conversions. If you put someone in front of me, I talk to them, we're going to convert 3 out of 4 of them, 5 out of 6 of them, 9 out of 10 of them. We are really good once someone's sitting in front of us. That's fantastic. And so you may think, oh, I don't need to worry about this because we already have high conversions. When in fact, what about all of the people who know about you, who are leads, who have not yet taken the action to schedule a consultation? What if you could have more of those consultations? And then what if you could accelerate the speed at which someone makes the decision to schedule a consultation? There's a lot of benefits to having this defined follow-up marketing system. 2 of the most are that you have more opportunities. So it's more money overall because you're just going to have more meetings. And then faster conversion. So you have more money sooner, meaning people are getting through that process faster than they might if you didn't have the system. And then ultimately, if you still have really high conversions at 8 or 9 out of 10 converting, 80, 90%, you might be in a position where you can raise your fees, which is ultimately more money with essentially no incremental effort. So that's an area where people are like, oh, okay, because I do like to see a conversion rate closer to about 75%. having that right tension of fee to service offering. Okay, so when does conversion start? So like I said, the conventional wisdom is that it starts as soon as you're having that consultation. You've tuned into the Zoom meeting, you are sitting across the desk from someone, and you're having meeting one, and maybe your process is 2 meetings or 3 meetings, it doesn't matter. You have your consultation. But if we wait until the consultation to start this system, then it's too late. Okay, you've lost the benefit of it. So our goal with the system is to shorten this cycle. So to come to this funnel here, and you want to shorten the cycle from the time that someone learns about you to the time that they become a client. The faster we can make that, the more revenue you'll get. And then we also want to set it up so that you're encouraging more of the right people to take the next step. We want to be screening people in and screening them out. So we also want to set it up so we're eliminating bad fit people, and that'll be within the context of what the communications are saying. And then you want to educate people as much in advance as to your service offering and what problems you solve and how you help and what they can be aware of, so that we're improving the outcome of those meetings that you're having. Okay, so conversion, if when I look at it, you could also argue on the other end, while it's not here at consultation, you could argue that it's up here. Like as soon as someone finds out about you, you're shaping their perspective of you. And this is in fact true. However, I like to say it starts right at the point at which you capture a lead. So you have an individual introduction. You have someone who has voluntarily offered to receive your information and has indicated some level of interest in your firm and your service. So with that in mind, 2 really quick website wins that you can have, and you can do your own evaluation of your website and say, hey, do I have that? And that's the first thing I do usually when I'm preparing for a consultation with someone. I'll look at the website and I want to see, is it really easy for someone to introduce themselves to you? So that should come across in 2 ways. One, you need to absolutely state what the first step in your process is. It should be no mystery for the person who is ready to get help with their financial pain points, their financial worries, to know what the first step is. So you want to clearly state that. You should have a button in the upper right corner that says schedule a call, schedule a consultation, schedule a meeting, whatever your language is. That should be accessible from any page. When you have a process page on your site, it should be very clear. The first step is that you schedule this consultation. So we want to eliminate that mystery and make it as easy as possible. But then we also know that the majority of people who come to your site are not yet ready for that kind of commitment or to take that kind of action. So we want to make sure we're offering at least one, if not more, ways to provide a name and email address in a low commitment manner. So these are 2 areas, and we're going to focus on that today, so I'll get into that. But these are 2 things that you can go do a check on your website and say, if someone's coming in, how do I make sure that they can introduce themselves to me? Okay. So let's get into these 4 steps. We're gonna step through these, and we'll be doing it pretty swiftly here. So, it's really just try to capture the concept and then step away and say, where are we falling short? What's the next action I can take to move one step closer to getting this set up? Okay, step 1, I've already alluded to it in the last slide, which is capturing that lead with a compelling lead magnet. Now, let me just say that I'm going to show you this step by step based on attracting a lead in a digital environment. So they're coming to the website. The reason I'm using this example is because it's going to be, it requires the most steps to take a lead to a client. Obviously, if a client emails you and says, I want to introduce you to my friend, they're interested in having a consultation with you, here's their email address, you're going to accelerate past that first 2 steps, the first 2 steps in this system. But I'm going to lay out each one for you so that you can build it completely, and then you can always jump ahead depending on the nature of the lead or the prospect coming in. So the first one is to capture the lead with a lead magnet. So what's a lead magnet? It's free information, one of those downloads where everyone goes, what's the, sign up to get the 10 reasons why. Often I see it like, sign up to get the 10 questions you need to ask an advisor if you're looking for help, which is very self-serving and not what I'm looking for, but it's the concept of having a way to catch a name and email address. What I want to see is something very hyper-targeted that is extremely focused on the needs, the desires, the fears of your target audience. And when I say hyper-targeted, I mean really clear. So we're really drilling into who is that most valuable client to you and what's on their mind. So two examples here. The first one is the charitable giving guidebook. So it'll say, download your charitable giving guidebook and you'll learn how to contribute substantially to the charity or church of your choice and still feel secure in retirement. So you can spend your time with your grandchildren. So that's really showing, wow, I see you're worried about running out of money, but you also want to be giving money away. You want to be contributing to your community. But most of all, you just want to be spending time with your grandparents, and we get that. So you really want to show that. And another example to look at is the Tech Exec exclusive report. 4 steps to craft your incentive stock option selling plan and minimize regret. Okay, great. This tech exec who's going to be coming into what could be a fair amount of money can look and go, what do I need to know about equity comp? How do I set up my plan? I don't want to blow it. This is my big opportunity. So this is something that's really showing your insight. And this is critical. If you put something generic like your retirement guidebook or how to craft your financial plan, it's not going to get any traction. No one's going to sign up for it. They're just not going to care. So you need to be as hyper targeted as possible, even if you're saying, but I work with other people too. Pick a target and deliver something that's really relevant to them. Okay, step 2 in the process. We've captured the name, so they've come in, they've signed up. Step 2 is potentially the easiest one, so good news. This is called contact, and this is the initial delivery of the material as promised. So, and then it's the follow-up sequence that warms up this lead so they can start to get to know you, so you can start to build that trust. It often looks like this. So you might have a picture of the guidebook cover or the checklist or whatever it might be, and you ask for a name and an email address. They hit submit. Then they land on a thank you page. And this can be system driven, meaning that it just says thank you, and it has a little message there. If you really want to up the experience, and I highly recommend this, you can add a video here, and the video can be you speaking direct to camera that says, hey, thank you so much for downloading this guide. I'm really excited for you to be able to access this material. I highly recommend you check out, tip number 3. And then you could also say, in the meantime, it's going to be in your inbox. In the meantime, I put together this short video on topic XYZ. So you're giving them additional or incremental value. There's lots of ways you can bump up that experience, but out of the gate, a basic thank you. Please check your email, it's coming your way. And then the system will kick off an email that says, thank you for your request, here's your free report. And so this is exciting. This is the fundamental contact point. Step 2, you've delivered it. But the bad news is that most people aren't going to read this. Now you say, why do I bother putting all of that together if no one's going to read it? Well, we're really just trying to attract them in, be hyper targeted, so we're screening in and out the right people to get them on our list so that we have the opportunity to continue the conversation. So we're going to build out the flow chart from here. So you're having your lead magnet, you can kind of sketch this out and go, okay, here's my lead magnet, here's the form, I have a thank you page, I'm going to have a video on there and some text. We send out the email, thank you for your request, here's your free info, and then you're going to follow up with content over a period of time, content 1, 2, 3, up to content X. Now, I know that's going to throw you because everyone's like, well, how many? Well, it doesn't really matter. It's really the number that you need to tell the story you want to tell. But I do want you reaching out a minimum of 3 times over that following 2 weeks. But you can do it, you know, I've seen it where people do 10, 12. You can do it over the first month. It's really, you're starting to see engagement. But the important thing is that you're continuing to tell the story, and you're offering up the next step that they can take for help. So in each of these, or a majority of them, you're saying, and if you want some personalized help, schedule a call, and you give them a link to your calendar. So that's really important. Then you may say, what should I put in there? Well, you can break down the follow-up. So you can just take this report, this thing that you've put so much time and energy into, and break it down. So this is actually, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a screenshot of mine from when I had my REA, and I had a free report that offered 10 tips for new and expectant parents. And my follow-up was that I broke down the steps and went into more detail. I provided a bonus step, and then I gave them common questions that parents ask. So I was able to take them through this process. And what's interesting is, no matter how much technology has evolved and changed, and we might be able to deliver things in new, cooler ways than back, you know, in 2012 when I did this, it's still the strategy that's working and continuing to deliver. So you might be using video instead of doing a PDF. You might be using some interactive PDFs on the site, but it's still the same strategy. And in terms of technology, you can use MailChimp, ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign, and each one of these gets a bit more sophisticated as you move down, but they all allow the opportunity to automate this so you don't personally have to be sending that out. Okay, step 3 in the follow-up system. We have 2 to go, and then I will open it up for questions. But these next 2 are really important because step 3 here, this has the most revenue impact. It is the most important and the most overlooked. And it's also the one where if you have someone who's skipping over the download section and they are coming directly to you from a COI, from a networking that you did, from a client referral, they're going to come directly into this step. So it's really important. So here's where you're going to reach out based on the individual action or inaction of this lead or prospect, if they're further down the funnel, in an effort to move them forward, to get them to take that next step, whatever it might be in their flow. What do I mean? All right, we're going to look and define the one-on-one communications that you will send out. And these are things that should be templated, that should be known, that should be workflowed out so that you or anyone on your team who is involved at the touch point of this process knows what to do. And this is where the system comes into place, where you come in and you're mapping it out and you're addressing it in advance so that you can just tailor a nuance for each individual as needed. So let's say someone inquires to your firm. So this really relates to the warmest prospects, right? They're reaching out, they're calling the office and saying, I'd like to learn more about what you're doing. They are submitting a form, they're emailing you. What is it that a prospect experiences? They're inquiring about the service and they're inquiring about the next step. Does your team know the screening questions you need? Are they able to ask those? Have you set that up? Have you set up the process for evaluating who talks to them, who sends the email, who makes the call? What are they saying at each of those steps? This is critical. So then we move into the scheduling. So the person now, they've inquired, now they're ready to schedule. How easy is it to schedule? Can they just click a link and pick a time? If they call in, do you make it easy for them to schedule, or do we have to go back and forth? If they're emailing you, what do you do to get them on the calendar? What's in that confirmation email? What kind of instructions are there? Does a prospect know what they have to prepare, if anything? What happens if someone cancels that meeting? What is the communication you send? How many times will you reach out to them to try to reschedule them? Is there material you send them in advance? Is there a welcome kit that goes out? There's all kinds of things that come up here that can accelerate people moving through the system or getting more people to move through the system, thereby all resulting in more income. All right, then they come to the appointment. So the next phase is getting someone to the appointment. Obviously, there's what is the experience of the appointment? Have you set an agenda? This gets really into the sales piece, right? Who's attending from your team? The more you're able to set the stage, do the screening, provide information of what to expect and what your service is in advance of this appointment, the higher quality those people will be. Now, the big thing about the appointment in terms of communication is, what if someone signs up at the end? How clear are you on what the next steps are? Do they leave that meeting feeling really confident and knowing exactly what they need to do next? Or what if they don't sign up yet, but they haven't said no? That's usually what happens, right? So then what? What are the communications that happen? And this is really important, that you don't drop the ball on communications after the consultation. It's absolutely essential. This is where you have a key step. This is the key step for accelerating your conversion, right? Hands down, you should send a thank you. So it should be, no, do we send an email thank you? Do we send out something in the mail? What do you do? I mean, that is kind of de rigueur. That's something that has to happen. But then how many times are you following up? In what manner do you follow up? Do you call? Do you email? Do you do a combination? Is it every other day? Is it every third day? Is it once a week until you hear from them? What is it that you're doing and setting up there? This is critical, because this is where you're going to see the most drop off. Inevitably, you could come out of a meeting and go, wow, I really thought that person was going to sign on to be a client. The question is, how much time and energy and money do you want to direct to trying to engage people who have made it this far in the process? That is why we set up the system, so that we know exactly how much energy we're putting toward it. We're going to devote that time, that one-on-one time, and map it out and follow that system. But when you have ultimately people at the top, leads you never hear from, and then prospects who ultimately ghost you, they end up in what I call purgatory. And purgatory is helpful when you understand that you're like, okay, something else has come up in their life, or they've taken a different action, but they're now in purgatory. And that's where step 4 comes in. And step 4 is a critical part of being able to stay in front of these people in purgatory, right? So this is the cultivate step. And these are regular calendar-based communications, and their whole goal is to keep you top of mind for everyone on your list, all the way from the person who just signed up for your email list to the client who's been with you for years. Now, you can do segmenting and targeting within that, but ultimately, any one of those people could come in the door, could make the decision. They could have a trigger event along the way, and when you're in their inbox and you're top of the list, they go, okay, right, let me give them a call, whether it's a lead scheduling a consultation, a prospect who goes, yes, I need to follow up and get that paperwork signed, or a client who just had an inheritance, or remember they had an old 401k they wanted to move over. It can also spark client referrals. And step 4 is really driven by your content calendar. So what do I mean there? Remember when we talked at the top of the funnel at the very beginning, when I was like, you're out there, you're sharing content, you're putting stuff out on social media, you're running a podcast, you have a blog. Well, the content, step 4 is really just double duty use of your content. So you're recycling, you're taking what you've already created and not only sharing it to generate interest and awareness, you're using it to keep your list warm. So we don't want our list to get cold. We want them to know that you're there and stay at a cadence that works for you. This way, You can also relieve your burden of how often do I need to follow up with them. You've followed the system, you've reached out individually following the system, and now you're just leveraging your time and content and getting that content out there. People can engage on their own timetable. So now we're in a spot where you're using your resources the best way you can. It's a whole lot easier to plan and implement than the individual outreach, and you're making sure you're staying there and letting people know every time along the way, this is how you can engage with us. So this is a critical part, and it's really the ongoing part in the 4-step system. So you can see, I know we breezed through that quickly in 30 minutes, but the fortune really is in this follow-up, and I don't want you to miss out. I know we need to let people know you exist. I know we need to generate interest, but let's not overlook all of the opportunity that lies in the funnel from the time someone introduces themselves all the way through to when they become a client. And again, the 4-step system is capture, contact, communicate, and cultivate. And that's all I'm going to cover today. I know it was speedy, but if you want to talk more about your situation or what, where you might be able to make some changes, feel free to schedule a consultation with me. My URL, my scheduling link is right here. I usually do these on Mondays and Fridays. I did open up tomorrow, Thursday, September 15th, for anyone who's attending this webinar. If you want to just jump on this while the information's fresh in your mind, you're welcome to schedule time with me. And with that, I guess I'll answer any questions that might have come in.
Perfect. Well, this is Daniel again, Chris, and thank you so much. This has been really powerful information. I especially really like, just hearing a little bit of a different, thought process and really trying to think through, what that prospect experience looks like and how can we really, think about every step of the way to make sure that, we can accelerate more people through the system and capture more people. So thank you so much just right off the bat. And I know we have questions rolling in, which is great. I also want to remind all of you who maybe jumped in a minute or two late that you can ask any questions you'd like of Kristin here within the GoToWebinar control panel under the questions drop-down menu. And for those who are requesting recordings or more information on the presentation, you're welcome to catch the recordings on RightCapital's Help Center under the webinars area, where we will be having the recording for watch. You can watch it on demand, or you can of course schedule some time with Kristin if you want more details. But ultimately, I do want to say that one of the first questions we got, I think, was Kristin, related to the discussions around actual conversions and how do we actually calculate that. And so Nathan did just ask, what would you call the number of leads that you have essentially divided by the consultations, and is that anything you would specifically speak to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a few different metrics that I like to look at along the way. So it's number of leads, and I'm writing as I talk here, so I believe you can see me, because again, when I'm calculating, as soon as I calculate, I have to pick up a pencil. So I like to think about it as like, so you have the number of leads into consultations. I think that is important to look at because it ultimately is telling you something about the quality of the people coming in, right? So you can have all the leads in the world, but if you're getting a low number of consultations, they're probably not as high quality, or they're a little early in the stage of when you need them. So we don't want to just look at the quantity of leads coming in. We want to look at the number of leads that convert to consultations, and what is the average time frame that happens, and then are there certain ways that these leads come in or channels they come from that are more effective and faster than other ones. It doesn't mean that we don't want to attract people in who I just worked with a coaching client yesterday, and he went back and evaluated, and we looked at, of the people this year who have signed up for consultations, how long have they been on the list, right? So some had, the longest one was 9 years. So he's been around a while. That was really, I was like, all right, that's an outlier. And then there's a 6 year, and then all the rest of them converted within a 1 to 3 month period, which is really fast. So I usually look for a 6-month flow there. So it's not necessarily, to answer your question directly, the direct ratio of leads to consultations, though I suppose the higher you can get that number, the better. It's really more, the good news is when you get a lead, it's leveraged. So it's less about that, but it's more about the quality of those people, and higher consultations would indicate that you have higher quality of people coming in. So I know it's not a direct answer in terms of what you call that, but it is really important to look at that. Ultimately lead to consultation, and then from there carrying it all the way through to the client number. So lead to client is an interesting metric to take a look at, to say, okay, we have this many leads coming in, and as ideally over time you go, for every 100 leads coming in, I know I'm going to get X number of clients in 6 months or in 1 year, because that way we can really start to just turn the dials and go, okay, this channel's working well, we're going to get X number of leads coming in, that should result in this number of consultations, and we know of this number of consultations we convert 75 of those, so that'll give us this number of clients. And that is really, that's exciting stuff. That's when you get into the cool metric part of it, and you can get excited. I find more advisors can get excited about marketing, because then it's about the numbers of like, okay, so now we've got it where we have a really high lead to client conversion, and that means that's a very high quality source that we're bringing in from. I hope that makes sense.
Great, thank you so much. No, very interesting, and Nathan was very appreciative of the answer, so perfect. So another quick question. This one comes in more relation to step 3, when we were talking about getting into that prospect experience, and getting your staff or whoever's connecting with that individual who might be reaching out directly, to have the right screening questions, to have the right information. But there was a specific question here about what are your thoughts on if you have a prospect who reaches out directly, about maybe like reverting back to like an email screening, or sending them at that point some email questions, and versus kind of maybe having the staff addressing that kind of on site when it's happening. So any thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah. So I think, yeah, the staff answering that all depends on the type of, clientele you have, and what are they likely to do. And I think just more lately, I've been hearing more about people calling in, which surprised me. I like to start this screening early on with the online calendar, and I see a number of advisors doing this really well, where you're already screening at the early point of when I click through to schedule the consultation. There's they can pick their time, they go through, and there's you can add questions at the end. And here you might reiterate any minimums you have, or who a good fit client is, or you might ask questions there that would screen people to get them through. So you can do this. I've seen people do it very overtly, where they say, essentially check this box if you understand that we offer only ongoing financial advice and we don't do project work. I've seen it where they say we work best with clients who have $1 million or more. Please check this box that says I understand. So people are, you can be very clear there. Or it might say we work with people who are within 2 years of retirement. What phase? You might ask, rather than say, do you understand that? You might say, where are you when you're thinking about retirement? When do you plan to retire? And you might have your drop down could be like different ranges, and then you might respond differently depending on how someone answers that question. So maybe you have a junior advisor reach out if they're further away from retirement. Maybe you send them a follow-up email saying, hey, here's some resources for you if someone submits and they're not a good fit. But ultimately, you can build out the system however you want, and a survey to clarify someone before they schedule that also can work well. It's just there has to be a built-in follow-up piece saying, hey, we'll send this survey out to you, and then if they've expressed interest in a consult and you send a survey out and then they don't respond to the survey, you just need to know how many times will you resend it, what happens at the point if they never answer it, or what happens there. So I like to clarify or screen as much as possible before you get to the meeting, and it can be done in multiple ways, either overtly or sort of subvertly, like through implying by the way you put your information out there. But there's no one way that's best. I would try some different ones. My only concern about sending the survey out to someone to fill out is that they don't respond, and then you have to decide what to do, and you may lose that consult, and they could be good and you wouldn't know, right? So
Makes perfect sense. So thank you. So a few more questions here. In relation to kind of what you spoke about earlier in the presentation about the lead magnets. There's a question here about what do you think is in your opinion the most effective type of lead magnet for prospects?
Oh yeah, this is a question that comes up a lot, and I'll say first of all, if you don't have one, then I would look, but you have been creating content, I would look and say, how can you bundle, 3 or 4 articles or elements of your content into a guide of related content and put that together into a PDF that people could download. Hands down, the very best lead magnet that's out there is when you have authored a book. And I know that isn't, too many people, but when you've authored a book, you can use that book in multiple ways. So whether I'm working with a firm now who gives away the book, right? So that is their lead magnet, and that is super high value, right? Especially because their audience is retirees. So the call to action is, hey, get this free book, and they mail out a book to that person. And in that book, we've put a bookmark with a QR code to sign up for a consultation, which you think wouldn't necessarily work. And in fact, it has, which has surprised me as well. I was like, sure, we can do that. And we tried it. I was like, wow, it actually worked. Okay. And I'm not saying that would work with every audience, but you have a book, you can also turn that into, if you're selling, they do sell the book, but the primary focus is to give it away. You can also be selling a book, right, on Amazon or what have you, but then give away a free chapter as your lead magnet. Say, hey, we have this book, get the first chapter free, which is outstanding because you're getting all the benefit of showing that you are an author and you have a book and you are a thought leader, and you're giving something away for free, and we don't have to wait for someone to read the book and make the decision down the line that they want to work with you. You're kind of circumventing that, saying, hey, buy the book or don't buy the book, but here's the chapter, right? And so then you get them in, and then you can layer in all kinds of follow-up information. You can also do it if you're really preemptive, that if you are writing a book, that you put in the book, now go to this site to download all of the worksheets from this book. And then you get them that way. So that's my favorite one, the highest value one. But I realize there's a huge inertia, where there's a lot of energy to get that going. But if you happen to already have a book, that one you have a lot going on, because you can do an audio version and put that out as lead. There's a lot of things you could do there.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for that. And just kind of on the lead magnet topic, this question just rolled in as well. If you're using, other types of lead magnets, is this something you would consider or recommend, putting in any screening questions within that, or would you more wait on that till a later time?
Oh, interesting question. So like within the context of the lead magnet?
Yep.
Is what I'm hearing. Yeah, so I think that's where you can leverage those contact emails that I mentioned, where you're following up. That's something that you could start to prompt and say, hey, ready to have a conversation, complete this form, or complete this survey. You could add it in there. And within the context of the lead magnet, that's where the hyper target piece comes in. So if you're using examples in the actual content, that's like where, let's say you're doing a video series, you go, most people who work with us have at least $1 million. So let's work through an example that says Jim has $1.2 million and blah, blah, blah. And so you're setting the context, the content to align with the screener. And then you can also directly ask that within that contact series. That is a fantastic way to set up or repel. I mean, to attract or repel the right people along the way, because people will figure it out. That's a
Perfect. No,
great question.
that's
That's a
great.
really good question. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess so maybe one last one here to wrap it up here. If one question to come in, if this individual maybe doesn't have a very big list yet, how do they go about getting more names on it and so they can benefit from the different follow-up systems?
Yeah, I mean, this is the big question, right? Because again, this goes back to the how much are you doing top of the funnel to fuel the funnel, right? So I know a lot of people get kind of disheartened by building a follow-up system because they have a small list or they've kind of cobbled together one kind of haphazardly through they haven't really formalized it. No time like the present to put the list in place, and even if it's 20 people, it's more about setting up the system and thinking through the process and starting to send that content out on a regular basis, like step 4, and having that. Then you just want to back them and go, okay, do we have a lead magnet? Do we have a way for people to enter the funnel? And so you start putting that in place, and then you say, well, how do I let people know about that? That's where we then reach out to more of the top of the funnel work, where, if you're publishing a blog in the blog or at the end of the blog, hey, for more information on this topic, we, click here to get a complete guide on X, Y, and Z. So maybe you take the content that is the guide and break it down into individual posts, and then you say, hey, to get more on this, download this guide. So you're starting to push the lead magnet out of the funnel up to the top, like to create awareness of it. And if you're running a podcast, you're saying on the podcast, hey, every week on Fridays, we send out our 5 best tips. I think Tim Ferriss does this. He does 5 Bullet Friday. And if you ever listen to his podcast, he goes, hey, want more great content like this? Every Friday, I send out 5 Bullet Friday, and you can just sign up for the email, and he gives a URL. And so he's trying to get people out of the brand sphere of the unknown to the known. So it's really just starting to shift the mentality about everything you're doing. Try not to make it about getting someone to become a client. Try to get it about someone to introduce themselves. And if you can do that and you have the system set up to handle it after they've done that, you can be freed up to have a lot more energy to engage and get the word out at the top of the funnel, knowing that you have this follow-up system locked in and working for you on the back end. I think that is one of the biggest reliefs. I know for me, that's one of my biggest reliefs. Like, I can go out and do things like this and talk to people and share my content, knowing that my back end is handled. So I think that is one of the biggest benefits. And then you'll see the ancillary benefit of the list growing and growing and growing.
Wonderful, Kristin. Well, thank you so much. That looks like it's about it for questions. So we'll probably wrap it up for today, but we really appreciate you joining us today. And we really appreciate all the wonderful content on accelerating growth with less effort. And all of you in attendance, thank you so much as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Daniel. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Bye now.